Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Again, my name is Mark Howell, and I am on the board of Sanshinji. And we're here basically today because within the past year, we've gone through the process of recognizing that Hojo-san has a wish to retire, recognizing that the longevity and well-being of Sanshinji relies deeply on a very good and smooth and harmonious transition over time. And we've been through that process in 2015, and today we're very delighted to have Reverend Hoko join us. This is our first introduction for many of us to Hoko in person. And today we'd like to talk a bit about, again, in more detail, how the need arose. So Hojo-san will talk to us about that, and Hoko will talk a bit about who she is and where she's coming from. And then I would like to take a little time from a more board level perspective to talk about how this process worked and how we see the future from kind of a big picture view of the organization. So we will each talk for about 15 minutes, and at that point we'll have question and answer period for about 20 minutes. And at that point then we'll break, we'll have a potluck, and we are all here today for the introductions and to answer questions, whatever questions you have. So with that, Hojo-san, I'll ask you to start.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Sanshin Zen community was incorporated in 1996, the year I finished my term as the interim head teacher of Minnesota Zen Meditation Center, because I wanted to establish my own practice place where I could practice in my style. And yet next year in 1997, I had to move to California, so I couldn't focus on establishing Sanshin. And it took me 7 years to establish this temple. So this temple was built in 2003. And 3 years ago we had a 10th anniversary. And since that time, I publicly started to say I want to retire when I become 75. That is 2023. Because I think 75 years old is a kind of a limit to be productive and creative. And also, as my teacher Okumura Roshi did, after he retired from Antaiji, he said his practice, rest of his life, was facing his own aging, sickness, and dying. I think that is very essential part of our practice, most fruitful sometimes, some way, part of our practice. So I really want to make it possible. And it's already 3 years past. And if I keep silent, I keep just saying I want to retire, nothing happens. And so I thought of Uchiyama Roshi's example. When Sawaki Kodo Roshi, Uchiyama Roshi's teacher, passed away, Sawaki Roshi asked Uchiyama Roshi to be the next Abbot of Antaiji. And Uchiyama Roshi did not want to take over. And he had a plan after Sawaki Roshi's death, he moved to somewhere else. But because of Sawaki Roshi's appointment or asking, he couldn't say no. So he accepted, but he said only 10 years he would be the abbot. And when he became the abbot, right after Sawaki Roshi's death, he appointed his successor. So we, all of us, know what happened when Uchiyama Roshi retired. So I think it's really important to make some preparation. If I continue to serve as the abbot until I become 75 and suddenly I disappear, then board and sangha needs to go through kind of a difficult process. And also I know some examples of Zen centers in this country. Their teachers died unexpectedly, and they had to go through difficulty. So I thought it's important to make preparation and make this transition as smooth, gradual, natural, and peaceful. And I want to reduce my responsibility little by little, and I'd like to naturally disappear. And that is what I thought, so I asked the board to make some plan. So board kindly formed the committee of this succession process. That was, I think, last summer. And they said, it's my responsibility to select a person as the next abbot. So I started to think who was the most suitable. And I thought Hoko is a suitable person. So I asked the committee to contact with Hoko. But honestly speaking, I didn't expect anyone to accept this position. Sanshinji is still a very small temple, and this is only one Soto Zen temple in the state of Indiana. So this is still small, and we don't have stable financial foundation. So the first work, the person who will be the vice abbot is working for fundraising to make the fund to pay to the person. I don't think so many people wish to get such a job. But unexpectedly, somehow, Hoko said yes. So I really appreciate her willingness to accept, this job or position. So Hoko has been practicing for many years, and she practiced with me when I was living at Minneapolis. So I know her more than 20 years. And she was first ordained by the head teacher of Minnesota Zen Meditation Center. But somehow she became my disciple, I think the year 2005, so 10 years ago. And since then, she has been practicing and studying. She participated the Ango. Ango is a practice period at Japanese monastery, I think 3 times, twice at Shogoji and once at Toshoji in Okayama. She stayed there for 7 months. So she has experience of monastic practice in Japanese monastery, and she studied Buddhism, and she got a master degree, and she now currently she actually teaches Buddhism, not Buddhism but Eastern religion. So she has a solid understanding, knowledge and understanding about Buddhism. And also she, for 2 years, she was the resident priest at Milwaukee Zen Center. So she has experience of as a leader of a sangha. So I think she is a right person to work with me to make the future of Sanshinji. And after I make this announcement through online, many people in this sangha and also teachers in the larger Soto Zen community supported my decision and this process. So I'm really grateful. I'm so sorry, but she needs to do so many things. Not only teaching, practice and teaching, but she would do some administration work also together with the board. And she has ability, and she also has experience as a board member of few Zen centers. So she also knows how to run the Zen center, practice center. So I think she is really a suitable person for this position. So I'm really grateful she is here today and ready to work with this sangha. So I really hope and ask you to support this 7-year process of transition, and let me live quietly and peacefully like a cloud. Well, that's enough for me this morning. Oh, another thing is we have another member of succession committee, Norma Fonberg. She planned to come here today, but her flight was cancelled yesterday. So unfortunately she cannot be here, but she is watching. I think that's all I have to say this morning.
Thank you, Hojo-san. Hoko?
Good morning. Nice to see everybody. Good morning. Some of you I know, some of you I still have the opportunity to meet. So thank you for coming today and listening and participating. And I look forward to getting to know everybody, those I already know and those I have yet to meet. So as Hojo-san says, your support is really important during this transition. So I ask for that, and I appreciate everything that's gone on so far. When I was running the Milwaukee Zen Center, the first Dharma talk I gave to that sangha was about how Dogen's teaching that all sentient beings are the Buddha nature, rather than all sentient beings have the Buddha nature, is a distinguishing characteristic of Soto Zen. So Dogen was offering something unique in the world of Buddhist practice. I think Sanshin is also offering something unique in the world of Buddhist practice in the West today. With Dogen's new interpretation, he was providing new opportunities, perhaps, for practice. And I think Sanshin is doing the same thing. This is where we have the opportunity to learn about and practice Dogen's teachings under the leadership of somebody who not only studies the teachings at a very high level, but also lives this tradition every day. And that's something which really we can't get anywhere else, I think. So Sanshin has a very special place in the American Zen landscape and perhaps in the worldwide Zen landscape. So there's an important legacy here that needs to be preserved and needs to be carried forward because, frankly, the rest of the world needs it, right? The rest of the world needs what we're doing. So in order to preserve that legacy and to continue to make that available to practitioners, we need both a healthy practice and a healthy sangha. We need to cooperate for that. So you might know the last one of Uchiyama Roshi's 7 points of practice was cooperate with one another and aim to create a practice place where sincere practitioners can practice without trouble. And that's what I want to make sure we have going forward here at Sanshin. So in my mind, there are two important aspects of that. The first aspect is sustainability, which pretty much just means that we don't try to do more than we have resources to make possible. That's human resources as well as financial and facilities and everything else. So Hojo-san's practice vision has been about two things. It's been about solid, sincere zazen, and it's been about Dogen study. And I would like to focus on those two things as well going forward. I don't want to change anything there. I see lots of ways to continue to build on that practice that's been established and to do that in ways that are healthy and sustainable for us in the long term. So to not overtax our resources doesn't mean we can't grow. It doesn't mean we can't expand in some ways. It just means that we have to do that in a thoughtful way. You know, we have to be thoughtful about how that growth happens. So it means we don't lose focus. If we know what we're here to do and we know what our practice vision is, we don't lose focus from that. And we make sure that what we're doing doesn't come at the expense of people feeling pushed and feeling burned out and going away and giving up their practice. You know, taking care of the sangha in that way is really important. There's a lot of important work to do, and we have to be thoughtful about how we do that. So I want to make sure we take care of each other going forward. We have, as we know, two kinds of sangha members. We've got the local sangha members, and we've got sangha members all over the world, living literally everywhere. Each one of those sanghas, each one of those groups, has a particular set of needs for its practice and has something unique to contribute to the community, right? So we've got these two groups that need to be working in partnership. The needs are different, the contributions are different, and we need to recognize that and to take care of that. So to maintain a sustainable sangha going forward, we have to maintain, create, build that partnership between the local sangha and the larger, more global sangha. And in my mind, we also need to take care of the partnerships amongst the groups within the larger sangha. That means board, it means disciples, it means local, it means national, friends, donors, all the groups that form up this great large community called Sanshin. So I'm hoping that we can work together to create solid relationships and to create and build solid partnerships. Because all of that is part of this effort to create a place where we can practice together sincerely and without trouble. So I really want to give a lot of thought to relationships and to partnerships. There's a lot of goodwill out in the world for Sanshin and for Hojo-san. I know people who are practicing all over this country. I participate in national conversations, and I participate in several other sangha projects. And I know there's just a huge well of goodwill for what's happening here. And I think we can do some exciting things by tapping into that goodwill. I think we can offer some exciting practice. I think we can do some exciting work if we figure out what people need for their practice and which of those needs we can meet and how we can do that. If we can be thoughtful about that, I think some really exciting projects can happen. It's the partnerships in my mind that make us sustainable. That's the partnerships amongst ourselves internally and the partnerships we can build externally. I think the groundwork is there with that goodwill and with the people who come here even for a short time and take the teachings out into the rest of the world, I think that goodwill is there. I'd like to build on that because the foundation for that is really solid. So I think we have some opportunities there. The other aspect I think is important in creating a place where we can practice sincerely and without trouble is clarity. To me, clarity is just paramount. When people come here to practice, I'd like them to know what they're stepping into. Not only what kind of practice are we offering here and how does the sangha function, but where do I go for help? If I need help to learn how to sit, if I need help in my practice, if I just need to know where do I park my car, where's the tea, how do I find the bathroom? We here need to have the answers to those questions. We need to have thought through for ourselves what are the roles and responsibilities, who's in charge of things, how do we work together as a sangha, how do resources flow here. We all need to be clear about that. And then the second piece of that is we need to be communicating that to everybody else, right? So again, I see a real partnership that needs to happen between those of us who are in the local sangha and the visitors that come in. You've already got relationships with some of these folks because some of our remote sangha members come in on a regular basis. You know, folks like Cohen, she comes here and then she goes home and she comes back. You know, so here's somebody who's really knowledgeable about what happens in the sangha, and that's thanks to practicing, you know, with all of you. So I want to think about how we create that ongoing good relationship so that information is clear when people come. Nobody's confused. Everybody feels welcome. Everyone feels cared for. It's something as simple as when a new person arrives, is there someone to greet him or her, to say, please sit here, please have a cup of tea, right? Because we all came here at some point for the first time. So we all got that experience of walking into Sanshin. So I want to think together about what's that like? You know, how do we make sure that's a healthy, wholesome thing, and that people have what they need? So I'm wandering a bit, but that's important to me. So because we do have people coming in and out, it can be a bit of a challenge to maintain that clarity. So I'm hoping we can commit as a group to achieving that and to carrying it out, carrying it forward. And again, that's clarity about roles and responsibilities. It's about everyone understanding how decisions are made, how to have input in decisions in an appropriate way, what kind of practice is available here. We just have a better chance of cooperating with each other and helping each other if we have some clarity. So I'll still be living at Hokyoji for a while this transition is happening. But I've told Hojo-san and Mark and others here that I'm certainly willing to help Sanshin from Hokyoji as much as that's possible. I do an awful lot of work online. And in this day and age, being in touch with you from a remote place is not so difficult. So I'm certainly willing and available, and I think Mark will begin to talk about some of the things I can start to take on. But really my initial focus here, largely, is observation. I'm not here to come in and upset the apple cart. I know some of you, I've been around Sanshin for a while, but I think the responsible thing for me to do now, when I spend time here and spend time with you, is to do a lot of listening, and to do a lot of watching, and to become familiar with the Sangha dynamics, and how you like to practice, and who's here, and what people need. So for a significant period of time, you may see me just watching and listening. And that's fine. I'm interested in your input and in your observations. And I think before any kind of change happens, that's really important. And fortunately, because of the thoughtful way that this transition is happening, we have a lot of time to get to know each other, right? I have a lot of time to watch and listen and sort of see where everybody is. And I think that's really critical. By the way, I just need to say I have absolutely no desire, no compunction to come in and sort of put my stamp on anything. I don't do change for the sake of change. I'm here to carry out Hojo-san's practice vision. That's really what I'm here to do. You know, we're here to do the Zazen and the Dogen study, and that's what I'm here to do. So I'm looking forward to partnering with Hojo-san to set some work priorities for the next 7 years during this transition. And what I want to make sure happens is that whatever he would like to get done in those next 7 years, I can help to get done. Because if I can be a support there, as we're thinking through the future of Sanshin, I want to do that. So really I'm here to do what Hojo-san has started. I am not here to come in and make a lot of change, or to have any kind of I don't have any kind of personal agenda about it. I'm here to do what Hojo-san has started. So practice will go forward with continuity. Please continue to come to Sanshin. Please continue to be part of the community in whatever way is meaningful for you, whether that's that you come here and sit on a regular basis, or that you participate long distance, watching and listening to the live streams with materials from the Dogen Institute. Whatever your relationship is here, please maintain that going forward. Please stay in touch. Please continue to participate. I'm going to be doing the best I can for Hojo-san and for Sanshin, but I'm going to need everyone's help. So please help me. If you see me looking confused, please point me in the right direction. Please give me your thoughts. Tell me how things are for you. I really want to understand how the Sangha practices together and how we function together. So again, I look forward to meeting those of you I haven't met. I look forward to reconnecting in whatever way with those that I may already have practiced with and get to know. And so please stick around for the next chapter in Sangha's, the next chapter in Sanshin's history, because I think it's going to be very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Hoko. Hojo-san has said in the past that he considers Sen Shinji to be like a third child. And it's a very good analogy, I think. And as he's looking at his own retirement, I think that it's a natural trajectory that the parent nurtures the child, and eventually the child takes care of the parent. And I'm absolutely convinced that to take care of Hojo-san over the long term and the health of Sen Shinji are one and the same thing. So I would like to talk a little bit, just so we have a good understanding of the process, excuse me, that got us here to today. And that is, again, how we went through the succession decision and works. As Hojo-san mentioned, he has expressed the desire for his own retirement, and clearly that is a long-term Sen Shinji event, both in facilitating real and meaningful final years of Shohaku's practice here. And I don't mean to be, we're looking at 7 years, I think, as Abbot. And the healthy, smooth, harmonious transition of the next Abbot is clearly a long-term issue, and the board recognized this. And it was clear that we needed to put together a deliberate, thoughtful process on how is it that we're going to make this transition work to the best of Sen Shinji and Okumura Roshi's well-being. And so the board did form a committee of Hojo-san, Norma Fogelberg, who some of you may or may not know. Norma is a Zen practitioner in the Bay Area of California. She's a long-term friend of Sen Shinji, and she has very unique qualifications of being a not-for-profit strategist, transitional consultant, so she was just a pearl. And the third person was myself. Once we were tasked with that, we spoke with priests and board members at other sanghas who had gone through the transition process and asked what works and what does not work, what's led to problems, how would you do it differently. which was very beneficial. We recognized similarities and differences between them and ourselves. We had governance or guidance documents by the San Francisco Zen Center has a document specifically on succession planning, which was very helpful. And locally, the Center for Congregations also had given us advice and some background materials. But in the end, fortunately, when Senshinji was first organized, the bylaws were very well put together and very clearly show that the head teacher has the responsibility for appointing their own successor. And I can't say how grateful we were that it was so clear. And that happened. Hojo-san, on his own, made a choice. And then the succession committee contacted Hoko. And I have to say I was just grinning ear to ear with joy because I did not know Hoko at all. I'd been with the board of Sanshin and I had been here practicing for some time, but I did not know Hoko. And not only does she have very strong practice credentials, I think her leadership, her outreach, her communications skills are very strong and very needed for our group. They're going to be extremely beneficial for us moving forward. So we have to take care of Hoko too. We've got to keep her up and healthy. But she accepted that and gratefully, and we put together the recommendation to the board, and the board did not approve or disapprove. It wasn't their role, but what the board did do was endorse heartily Hojo-san's decision, and that led us to be here today. Information on the progression of this, as we move forward, more details will fill in and some things may be added or subtracted. But I would encourage everyone who wants to follow this process. We have a web page. It's off of Sanshin's web page, and it is the best single source of information. Please go there. But it won't end at that. One of Hoko's job one, starting off, is helping us with communications. Being on the board for many years, I know that the communications aspect isn't one of our strong suits. I know that causes some anxiety when people don't know what's happening, what's going on. So we see that changing. You're going to see organizational efforts happening where we try to take everything that's going on now kind of as separate efforts. I shouldn't say separate. I know we're all connected, but we're going to try to pull all these things so that the knowledge goes up and down both ways. Everyone knows what everyone else is doing, and we're all paddling in the same direction, I think is one way to say it. So this board over the next year is going to be looking at things like long-term strategies for Sanshinji, which is going to include restating our fundamental deep Zazen practice and Dogen studies, and then making sure that everything that we do from top to bottom aligns with those to preserve them. We're going to try very, very hard to get dialogue between the board and the local sangha, the extended sangha, but we need that dialogue. We need all to be working on the same goal in the same way. and clear up any issues in back and forth communication. We'll be reaching out to the local sangha. For example, Hoko was saying, gave us some examples of what that might look like. We certainly, our own health depends on the health of each of us individuals, so we can't, ask too much, but we will be asking some things. I don't have specific details yet. I personally tend to be kind of wanting to rattle off, let's do, let's go. I'm seeing, obviously, thoughtful, methodical certainly has its virtues and benefits, and that's the way we're going to do this. We're going to roll this out. The transition will be rolled out in a thoughtful and methodical way. So we're not kicking it down the street for another 2 years. You're going to see more things come out in 2016. Hoko will be here in June 24th? 18th. Thank you.
Saturday 18th.
We will have a formal ceremony of Hoko's installation as Vice Abbot. It'll be the same weekend as we have Shuso ceremony. So I hope everyone could be here, and we also will take the opportunity to celebrate Hojo-san's birthday at that same weekend. But Hoko will be installed as a Vice Abbot. We will be communicating what does that mean, what is a Vice Abbot doing. I think what I'm hearing is for a year, not much. We'll be then listening and understanding and meeting.
Yes, and whatever Hojo-san on the board would like me to take on.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think there are some initiatives that are going to begin to happen, some coordination of communications and support for the volunteers that are already doing that work and some things like that. So,
Yes.
But in the midst of all that, I just want to be clear, I'm not here to come in and upset the apple cart. I'm here to watch and listen for a long time and figure out, what everybody needs.
And then we're thinking October 1 or very close to that. Hoko will actually come and reside at Senshin and be with us then from that point on. So that's all I have. I hope the takeaway that you get is that the board is thinking ahead. We're doing it very thoughtfully. We're doing it very deliberately, and you'll see more from us, and the communications will be improved, so you'll hear it more rapidly going forward. And just again, please, if we can all be supportive of one another, all supportive of Senshinji. If we take care of Senshin, it will take care of each of us. So, thank you. We'd be happy to have any questions regarding the transition, what it means, please.
Excuse me, did I hear in the long laundry list of all of Hoko's experiences, did I hear anyone say that she was director for 2 years at Senshinji?
No, but it's true.
Right.
I don't even remember, it was a long time back, but yes, there was a period of time where in the absence of some administrative help, I sort of took on an administrative director role, and I was doing that from St. Paul. So I was doing it from 700 miles away, which was a challenge, but it was what I could do at that time. So I did have some previous involvement with Sanshin administration, was some time ago. But thank you, yes, that's right. Please.
I'm curious about how you began to practice. What made you interested?
Sure.
Repeat
Okay.
the question.
Yes, let's repeat the question. So the question is how I began practice, how I became interested in Zen practice. When I was growing up, my father and my mother's mother were both interested in Eastern traditions. We weren't practicing any religion together as a family, but these two folks were interested in Eastern religion. So when I became a young adult and started doing search, like many young adults do, looking for some kind of practice, it didn't seem strange to me to investigate Eastern traditions. So I was living in Minneapolis at the time, and I went to my local branch library, and I started reading a lot about a lot of traditions. And I pulled out a book which happened to be by Diamond Katagiri, who founded the Minnesota Zen Center. And I read this book, and I understood maybe 5% of it, but I thought, there's something here for me. I don't understand this, but there's something here. Well, come to find out, of course, that there was such a thing as the Minnesota Zen Center. So this is before the days of the internet. You know, you couldn't just go online and look at their website. I had to call them up and say, do you have a program? Do you have a brochure you can send me about this stuff? Which they did. They sent me stuff. And I went for an intro Zazen, just like I'm sure all of you did at one point. They do intro Zazen up in the attic. It's an old house, Minnesota Zen Center. You remember? So up in the attic, we learned to sit Zazen. It happened to be Buddha's birthday that day, unbeknownst to me. But the way that the morning worked at that time was that the intro Zazen was happening upstairs in the attic at the same time that regular Zazen was happening downstairs in the Zendo. And there, you know, it's an old house, so there were a couple of stairways. If at the end of intro Zazen you wanted to stay for the Dharma talk and the tea, you could do that, going down the set of stairs. And if you thought you'd had enough and you wanted to leave, you could sort of exit out the back. Well, I came down the stairs, and because it was Buddha's birthday, it was elbow to elbow. The place was packed, and they're all standing there. And I took one look at that, and I escaped out the back door. Because that was kind of scary. But the next Saturday, I was back. The very next week, I was back. I was sitting Zazen and participating in the sangha. And the rest, as they say, is history. So I really felt like there was something in this practice for me. I became quite heavily involved with Minnesota Zen Center. So from there, you know, I've taken many opportunities to practice in a variety of different places. And at one point in my practice, I thought, my practice is so meaningful to me. I really would like to be able to help other people. I really want to provide some kind of a gateway for other people who want to practice. And so ordained and trained in that way, and have taken opportunities to not only train in this country, but to do my training in Japan, because I really wanted to be affiliated with the denomination. I really wanted to be recognized by Soto Shu and have access to those resources and carry that tradition. And you know, it's not something everybody wants to do, but it was really important for me. So I'm fortunate that I had the opportunities and made the opportunities to do that, to do the required training, to do as we say in Japan. And so now I've been appointed Kokusai Kyoshi, which means I'm an international teacher, recognized by Soto Shu, and here to do my work. So that's the short version. Does that, please follow up if there are other things you want to know, because you know, it's a lifetime and a minute and a half. But yeah, that's why. My practice is meaningful to me, and I just want to make those opportunities available to other people. Please.
I just do want to kind of follow up with this. Given that nobody can unpack Dogen like Hojo-san can, I'd like to know how your lectures and teaching are, if you can give us any insight to what it's going to look like.
Well, you are correct. I'm not Hojo-san. I would be a fool to come in here and think that I could replace my teacher. I'm not here to do that. When I was in Milwaukee and giving a Dharma talk a week, that's a really helpful opportunity, because you find your teaching voice and you really figure out what's important to you. And so I can't tell you today what my talks are going to look like in a year or 2 years or 5 years, because we all develop. And when you're speaking to a sangha, you're speaking to that sangha. And I try to pay attention to what people need. Where are people challenged? What are the issues that are happening in the sangha? What do we need to talk about? But I can say I typically stick pretty close to Soto Zen teachings. You will not probably hear from me Rumi poetry and Reiki healing and Tibetan slogans. All of those things are terrific, but I'm not experts in that. There are other places to do that, and I think Sanshin has a legacy. Sanshin has quite a particular mission, and I want to stick really close to that. So, my knowledge of spoken Japanese is that big, and my knowledge of written Japanese is about that big. I hope to expand on that, but clearly I can't do what Hojo-san does, which is why preserving this legacy is so important. And amen that we've got stuff written down and published and recorded that we're going to be able to work with for a long, long time. So there are some aspects of Dogen's teaching that I think I understand at least minimally and can help people to apply on a daily basis. Because that's kind of a challenge, right? You open a book of Dogen and you read this and you just think, what does this mean for me, But I think because we're practicing these things together, we are giving them life in a particular way, and we can continue to talk about that. I think one of the things that I tend to rely on when I'm giving those talks is my own experience in Japan. Not that I want to replicate that here, but it really gives context. When you're reading something Dogen has written, he's talking to practitioners in a Dharma hall, and making reference to particular artifacts and seating arrangements and what. And if you don't have that context, it doesn't make sense. So I can supply a little bit of that, and just sort of put some things in context. So can I give you a specific no beyond that's my focus just anyway, because that's what I'm interested in, is the particular Sotoshu teachings and the particular Dogen teachings. But I think we're going to develop together a particular Sanshin voice that goes forward. So I want to build on the foundation that's here and then provide whatever in addition I can provide to that. Does that help?
That does, thank you.
Sure. Others? And not just me. I'm not the only one sitting here.
In piggybacking from Hoshin's question, is this correct understanding that in the 7-year transition, Hojo-san is still going to give 2 Genzo-e retreats here?
It's up to my physical and mental condition.
Thank you.
There's no guarantee.
My question for you, Hojo-san, do you have a clear picture when you say your retirement, what that's going to look like? I mean, are you going to go to Hawaii and sit on the beach with, or are you going to be proximate? You have no idea?
I have no idea.
Thank you.
The location might be up to Yuko, where she wants to live.
Yuko, you have a clear picture of what you
Hawaii
envision?
sounds good.
She has been following me, so this is the time I follow her.
I have a question for you, Hoko-san. I'm a member of the local sangha, and one of the really nice things I think about being here and living here is that Hojo-san's disciples come here from all over the world, and the people in the local sangha get to know them. And one of the ways we get to know them best is when someone comes and is shuso here for a few months. And I know you were ordained as a priest by Hojo-san, but I'm confused about when you were shuso, and was it here at Sanshin?
No, actually it was in Japan.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was shuso in Japan, which was both a huge opportunity and the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I had a friend who was doing his mountain seat ceremony in Japan in order to take over his temple.
Mhm.
And part of that ceremony is that you need to have somebody be a shuso.
Oh.
And so he asked if I would do that. And I was happy to do that for him. But at the time that I did that, I had not spent a lot of time in the Japanese training temple, so I had about 4 days to learn things that people take 6 months to learn. And yeah, it was tough. There were things I had to memorize, there were multiple ceremonies I had to be able to do, and there is something about training in a traditional place that give you a certain bearing.
Yeah.
You know how to carry yourself, you know how to hold objects, you know how to move in a zendo, and I was a rank beginner. So I didn't have any of that. So it was really, really hard. But at the same time, what a blessing to have that experience. I mean, it really threw me in at the deep end. And I was really quite anxious because as an American person, an American woman going to do this ceremony, you know, there were lots of people there that weren't so sure this crazy American woman ought to be doing this, you know. And I recognized that by doing that ceremony, it was not only about my own reputation, but I had the reputation of my friend and his temple family all right here, right? So in its unique way, it was a really helpful piece of training. It wasn't the kind of training that you see when our shusos come here and we have that interaction. And so at that time, I didn't have that opportunity to get deeply embedded into this sangha. But it provided me some interesting kinds of training that I'm still figuring out what that meant. You know, years later, I'm still sort of unpacking that whole thing. So our opportunity to get to know each other isn't going to be traditional shuso time. We're going to do it in other ways. But you're right, you didn't miss me. You didn't miss something. I didn't do it here.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Please.
I don't have a question. I've gotten a lot of answers this morning, but I just wanted to express my appreciation to all of you for the way that you're going about this. I'm so grateful for it. I don't like change, even though I know that's unavoidable. And I've actually been uneasy about this. Frankly, the reason that I started coming to Sanshin is I came to one Sunday morning talk with Hojo-san, and that's why I came back, because of Hojo-san. So I really have been uneasy about this, and I'm very appreciative that you're doing this. You're making these plans so far in advance, and it's a very gradual transition so we can all get to know one another, and I'm grateful that you accepted this. So I'm looking forward to the transition now. It's difficult, but it couldn't be handled any better, and I just wanted to thank you all.
Well, thank you, and I hope you'll stay involved during the transition and help us figure out what needs to happen and how, and whether or not the communications are working, and if there's other information that people need. I think the fact that we do have this long-term transition means that we can manage our own anxiety. I have anxiety too, right? I mean, I'm in the hot seat in some ways, so I need your help. You know, but I think if we figure out how to work together, this can be quite successful. And I have to say, because Sanshin is well known and Hojo-san is extremely well known, that's one piece. And because in the world of American Zen right now, succession is a hot topic. We've got a whole group of teachers getting ready to retire. You know, we've kind of hit the bubble. And so we have a lot of sanghas that are going through this. We are not alone by any means. So because this is a well-known sangha, people are looking to us and watching how this unfolds. And I have to say that my peers, when my peers get in touch with me and say, gee, congratulations on this thing, they're also saying, by the way, what a great looking transition process. And thank you for putting it out there, because I think how we handle this can really be a model for other sanghas. So we are working now not only for our own growth and for the depth of our own practice. In some ways, we're kind of leading the charge in a much larger world. So our peers, our Dharma brothers and sisters around the country and around the world are part of this thing too. So if we're skillful about how we are with each other, if we're skillful about how we communicate, I think we're adding something in the world of American Zen, even in addition, you know, to what's happening here. So that's why these partnerships are really important. So I thank you for expressing some relief, perhaps, at how this is going, because I'm sure you're not the only one with anxiety. We've all got anxiety, you know. But I think, again, we've got to be clear about that, what the roots of that are, how we can practice with that together, how we can support each other, Because you've got to know we've all got some anxiety, right? So let's stay together on that.
Yeah, I will say something that first I really appreciate the committee, Mark, especially you. That I remember when one of the board meetings, Hojo-san announced kind of, I want to retire in 10 years then. And I said, oh no, it has to be in 5 years. And I remember your reaction. I mean, you might be the only one who took my, words seriously. It's like, oh my God, in 5 years? I mean, that was sort of, I believe, kind of wake-up call. If you think that, 10 years, okay, well, we'll have plenty of time. But when I said 5 years, it kind of hit me. It hit people like, whoa, 5 years is really quick. It goes quick. So, and then now it's only 7 years, but it didn't happen if you start working immediately and involving Hojo-san and tell him that it's his responsibility to. So I really appreciate this whole process went quickly, and then it's so true that we have 7 years. That is wonderful, and we can kind of learn each other and grow together. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I certainly do not think 7 years is too long. In fact, to me, 7 years is a little compressed. I would rather have a little more space because we just have so much to do, and we want to come out of that 7th year running just as strong as we are today, if not stronger. So again, I appreciate all the positive feedback and just make sure we keep talking and we keep working together. I'm sure it'll happen.
Hi.
I'm thinking about you in this process, and there's a piece of information that I'm looking for, and I'm going to see if I can find a question that gets me to be able to articulate it. As I think about you coming into this situation, I'm thinking partly about your motivation. And I can see a certain number of things line up really nicely. For example, if this Sanshinji was a corporation, you'd be a great CEO. Like, tick, 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 there's a lot of things. Experience, a lot of things line up. Great. I also have the sense of your heart being engaged in this history, in the legacy of Dogen's teachings, and also in Hojo-san's teachings. And so I have a sense of your heart's desire to be part of that and to accept the responsibility of carrying that forward, and how that could be an honor. I'm wondering if there's, so I have a sense of that, and yet I don't have a sense of, I want to be the abbot. So I wonder if there's something for you that's going on that I don't sense in me.
That's a very interesting question. When I took vows, I never had any aspiration to be an abbot of a Dharma center. That doesn't mean I wouldn't accept that, but it wasn't something I said, I really want to be an abbot of a Dharma center. And yet, what an opportunity. So when I was running the Milwaukee Zen Center, it was a bit of the same thing, because I was still in Japan finishing my training. The teacher there wanted to retire. They wanted somebody to come and take it on, because otherwise the doors were going to close. And at the time, the first time they contacted me, I said, I'm not done with my training, I'm not qualified, I'm not your girl. Time went on, they still didn't have a successor, and they got a hold of me again. Please, would you think about this again? And I thought, I don't really want to do that. There's other Dharma work I want to do. And then I thought, no, wait a minute. What are you taking vows for if you're not going where you're needed? What's the point? I thought, this is silly. Of course I have to go. Now, will it be easy? No. I mean, it means you put aside some things you want to do, and you take this out. But I thought, There's practitioners that want to sit zazen and they're not going to have a place to do that. They're not going to have a teacher. They're not going to have a sangha. The doors are going to close. And this is a sangha that's been around for a quarter of a century. Milwaukee Zen Center has been around a long time. Talk about a legacy, So I thought, no, you go because they need you. So there's a little bit of that happening here because I don't want Sanshin to disappear. And I don't want the legacy to go we don't know where. I think it's so critically important that the work go on as long as it can go on, and that we preserve everything and continue to make that available. I so want to see that happen. And I'm really very interested not only in practicing with the Sangha and building the Sangha and sitting together, but in the whole Dogen Institute piece, which is so innovative and could be, there's so much potential there for tying practitioners in with resources, and I just think it could be so huge that I'm so enthusiastic about what could happen. Not that I want to change what's going on, but that let's start with where we are, and I think we just got so much potential in partnerships and in working together, and my hope is that I can supplement what's happening here, not throw it all out the window. But Mark will tell you, my arms start waving, and the words start flying because I just see so much potential here, and so much support for practice here. This is already a terrific place, and I think it goes on being a terrific place, and even in some expanded, larger way. So personally, I hope that I have some opportunity under the umbrella of Sanshin to do some of my own personal Dharma initiatives. I write chapters for books that come out, and I've got my own kind of projects. I have an online journal. It started out as a paper magazine. I've now taken the whole thing online that I produce. And all of those, my hope is that I can wrap all of those kinds of things into the Sanshin identity in ways that are appropriate and that advance the mission. So it's not about my ego. It's what I want to do is throw those resources behind what's happening here so that we do some unique, innovative, creative stuff. So, my own personal motivation is that I think I can do the Dharma work that I think I am qualified to do in a way which is helpful for Sanshin, move Sanshin forward, and everybody's needs get met. So does that begin to fill in some gaps for you? The more we all get to know each other, all of these things are going to become clear, and I'm happy to talk about all of it. But is that enough for now?
Yes, well spoken.
Don't get me started.
Other questions? Yes.
I'm a local Sangha member. I believe I heard that you have taught or are teaching. Is that going to be a substantial portion of the financial well-being for you here, us here? And we're getting to know you here for the first time. Look forward to meeting you when you share a Dharma talk with us. When might we anticipate that first one?
Okay, so that's a two-part question. So in answer to the first part of your question, I do teach college online. I was teaching it in the classroom when I was running the Milwaukee Zen Center. It's a tiny college in Sheboygan. So when I left there, it's like a 4-hour drive. I can't commute. But I said I'm willing to teach this course online if you want, because they don't have anybody else to teach Eastern religion. So I don't do it all the time. I do maybe once a year. It's an intensive 7-week course. This is midterm week, so my students are studying this week because it's midterm week. So it's something I do. It's sort of in a short burst. It's some welcome revenue, but it is not my main livelihood. It's something I do because it's helpful to the college, and it also keeps my own skills up. It's good for me to do that work from time to time. So I also do some Dharma work for various other Sanghas. Some of it's paid, some of it's pro bono. But I get by pretty well on not much. As long as I have basic needs met, my life is good. So I'm not concerned about the board's ability to make sure I'm in a good situation.
I'm concerned about it.
Well, I trust that we're all going to work together and that this is fine. So I'm not going into this with a lot of anxiety. And if I need to support myself, I can. I have marketable skills. I can go out and get a job. I'm okay with doing that. It cuts into time available to Sanshin, but we need to strike a balance so that everybody's healthy. I'm not somebody who works myself into the ground and then disappears. I don't go for that. We all need to be healthy, and we need to have a sustainable situation. And I'm completely confident that this can be a sustainable situation for Hojo-san and for me. So that'll be okay. First Dharma talk. I actually have to refer you to the board for that because I'm leaving it to these folks to decide what is sustainable between now and October 1 in terms of how many times I'm here, how often I get here. So I don't have a date, an answer for you, but because we're going to do some good communications, it should become clear, and as soon as we know that, we'll put out the word so that people who want to be here for that can be. But I look forward to that because in my experience, at least in Milwaukee, we would have some terrific discussions after the Dharma talk. People would really dig into whatever it was. We'd have some fabulous discussions. So I'm looking forward to doing that here. It should be very interesting.
Thank you.
I'm just curious on the outline of your syllabus. What do you cover in your East Asian course?
I am required to, as also an academic teacher, you would want to know that. I am required by the college to cover the same amount of material in this 7-week term that we would cover in a 12-week term normally. So this is a really intensive experience. I have to cover Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, and Shinto. It's one tradition a week, so you can imagine my students. I tell my students from day one, this is your whole life for the next 7 weeks. Because for my students, often this is their first exposure to anything like this. You all came in here probably the first time with some idea that you wanted to know something about how to sit, and for my students, some of them, frankly, they're there for the credits, and I get that. So they've had no prior exposure to this. So imagine how hard they're working. With one tradition a week, every week.
You got all of Buddhism in 1 week?
No, I couldn't do it. When I did it in the classroom, I had more time to spread out, and I actually cover Indian Buddhism as different from Chinese Buddhism, as different from Japanese Buddhism, and I have to truncate a little bit in a 7-week course, but still, when we're doing China, we're also doing Chinese Buddhism. When we're doing Japan, we're also doing Japanese Buddhism, because I want people to see the progression. And because I'm teaching this course, in an academic setting, but here I am, ordained practitioner, living this tradition every day. There's something unique I can add for those students that they wouldn't get otherwise, and so I feel some responsibility to do it that way, to offer what I have, and they can make of that what they will. But I tell them, please ask me questions about my life, because when else are you going to get an instructor that lives this tradition and can speak to you like that? So if they're curious, I tell them whatever they want to know, as I'm sure you do as well.
Thank you.
Please.
So as a follow-up to that, that progression that you were talking about, then you have American Zen. So do you ever touch upon that, or is that Western religion now?
No, in the classroom I did. I spent a whole week because it wasn't anything I was required to do, but as a practitioner practicing in this country, I thought there are just such interesting things to talk about. So I can't do it as a separate week. But the way I integrate that is that part of because it's an online course, we're required to do some discussion board posts. So this is the way we interact as a class, because I'm not in the room with them, and so that's hard. So we do a series of discussion board posts, and I'll throw like 4 different questions on the board at the beginning of the week, and then during the week we talk about this. And often what I'm asking people to do is to relate what they're reading about, what they're learning about, with their own spiritual tradition, or their own life in this country. And so we begin to get into how do these things play out in an American setting. So sometimes I'm talking quite specifically about Buddhism in the West, and sometimes we're just talking about how do we do a spiritual practice here, because there are commonalities. And for these students, I really want them to see what we're practicing in Buddhism is in some ways not so different than whatever tradition they're coming from in our big American melting pot. So if I'd had the time still, I would do something quite specific about that. I have to do it now the best I can. Are we done?
Okay. A last question?
Really just a comment based on what I heard Risa say. And excuse me, I've forgotten your name, your inquiry. Greg, thank you. Of Hoko. What I see in Hojo-san as well as Hoko is their unwavering commitment to the three treasures. And what I have learned, which I also will have a hard time, 7 years, letting go of my attachment to Hojo-san, but what I've learned from him is that we are to treasure his teaching, not this body, because sooner or later he will disappear. But if we have embodied and heard and learned his teachings, that's the Dharma treasure. And I see Hoko as being one with him in that. So.
Thank you. Hojo-san, would you like to say anything else?
I just want to say thank you to all of you and for the board and the committee and Hoko. I'm just grateful. You know, I came from Japan about 20 years ago with nothing, only with my family, me, Yuko, and 2 children. But now, not only people in this room, but my family become really large. It's boundless. So I really appreciate all of your practice and willingness to study this kind of strange teaching called Buddhism or Zen. So I just want to say thank you to all of you.
Anything you'd like to say, Hoko?
I think everyone's heard enough from me.
Well, thank you all, and we'll stop at this point. But we'll have pitch in, and then Hoko, myself, Hojo-san, or we'll still be here. We can continue answering questions if they arise. And after today, again, communications are open. If you have any questions about the process, about what happens, my email address is on Senshin's webpage. You're welcome to contact me. I encourage you to. Hoko's contact information, if it's not there, it will be.
If it's not there, it will be.
And that's it. We want to keep the dialogue open. So again, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.